Hi, I'm Jabbar, and welcome to my storybook. Today, I want to read one of my favorite books. Here's a story of the former basketball player who had won championships. He won for the Bucks and for the Lakers, and his name is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was one of the most famous legends I ever read, I ever seen on television. Where he was a team from Magic Johnson and have won more of the championships that I've ever seen. Today I will read this book called Basketball Hall of Famers, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We begin part 1 to part 3 of this series. And I'm going to read it right about now. It's a story that the man who grew up, wanted to play basketball, and wanted to have the morning. I want to share this morning with you too. This is part 1 of this series. And then in this book, let's begin now. Introduction number 1. Dear Lord. Introduction. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is still an active basketball player, although his time has made history as a center for both the Milwaukee Bucks and the Los Angeles Lakers. This National Basketball Association champ is implying his love of the sport to enrich the lives of young people. Although many basketball players have been selected to the Basketball Hall of Fame since 1959, few have played as many seasons as Jabbar, a 20-year NBA veteran. Jabbar is still involved with basketball, although as a coach rather than a player. His signature shot, the sky hook, is long gone rusty. But the Hall of Famer is not losing his wisdom of a lifetime on the court to endorse others. Jabbar was assassinated for all his 20 seasons in the NBA, but it takes more than good moves to be a superstar. Rising to the top takes talent and an overwhelming drive to excel. Jabbar had both even before he was drafted to play professionally. This combination helped turn him from a great player into one of the best ever. However, he is not only one of the best athletes. Jabbar is also a person of high moral standards. Throughout his life, Jabbar has lost his interest in sports as a method to communicate with young people, including a turn as an assistant coach to the upper high school team from 1998 to 1999. Off the court, he has raised money for Voices Children Carers as a Korean kids, which he found to motivate children to stay in school. He has also been involved with scholarly groups. Jabbar lent his support to projects that document the historical accomplishments of early African Americans, including a recent television film about civil rights activist Von Johns, and telling his own story in his photography, Giant Steps. He is often quoted as saying that his reasons for writing was because he felt that children were in need of possible and accessible role models. Jabbar's advice to young people often echoes the vision in the pages of his book, Black Profiles in Courage. I define courage as recognizing when something needs to be done and doing it, even when there are easier choices. To me, that's the true measure of character. It's essentially not easy to live up to Jabbar's definition of courage, even for him. It is also difficult to both be both a famous athlete and a hero. Still, all that just aside, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is both. Chapter 1. New York City. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was born Federer Lewis Alcala Jr. on April 16, 1947, in New York City. He was the only child of his parents, Cora and Ferdinand Alcala Sr. Sticks, Carlisle. He lived in a section of New York City called Harlem. The Alcala family had moved to New York City from Trinidad, which is a island nation in the Caribbean. Lou, Lou, as he was called him, was a large infant, almost 13 pounds. But because he came from a family of very tall people, his father was 6 feet 3 inches, and his mother was almost 6 feet tall. It was no surprise that he was going to be tall, too. Jabbar's family was well educated. His father became bilingual because his job brought him into contact with many different people. Education was very important to Alcados, and they made sure Jabbar understood the importance of earning good grades from an early age. His parents had set him to be able to read well long before his peers even began learning. Jabbar's parents were very active in their faith and encouraged their son to have strong religious beliefs. 2. They attend they attended church regularly. In fact, they had met each other in a church choir. Jabbar's parents taught him the importance of strong family values. He learned all about this in black profiles and chords. Like other youngsters, every so often I need some outside guidance. I always look to my family first. The most important lesson they taught me was the value of the development chapter. Pride, honor, discipline, dignity, and course of conviction, and more backbone. Music also was a very important pastime in our Cordova household. Jabbar's father, Al, went to the Jewelry School, which has a famous music division in New York City. Al played the trombone and studied to be a conductor, a person who leads an orchestra. But when Al could not find work as a conductor, he worked for a funeral company instead. Later, he worked for the transport police, having to protect people who ride on city buses and subways. When Jabbar was just a few years old, his parents moved from Harlem to Inwood, a section of the city just north of Harlem. The neighborhood was filled with people who had come from many different places. Some were from countries in the Caribbean, such as Puerto Rico and Cuba. Others were from countries in Europe, such as Germany and Russia. As a result, Jabbar was influenced by a wide variety of different languages and cultures while growing up there. Jabbar's parents were devoted Catholics, and they sent their son to the Catholic school. By first grade, he was enrolled in St. Jude's and Catholic grammar school run by nuns. When Jabbar was in third grade, he began to realize that he was the only African American student in his class. When he saw his class picture, he was surprised. As he recalled it a little, and here's a photograph. Giant steps. I'm dark, skinny, and everybody else is light, skinny. Since he had always lived around people of all colors, he hadn't noticed the difference. Now, however, it was obvious. I was darker than the rest of these kids. I didn't mention it to my parents when I got home that afternoon. I just had this special bit of information, and I took it away from home. Jabbar remained unrolled at St. Joe's until the fourth grade. At that time, his parents decided it would be the best for him to go to the boarding school, where he will live full time. The school was wholly providence in Philadelphia. He disliked the boarding school environment and was sometimes teasing her for being an excitement student. Other times, the abuse became physical. Athletes, and especially basketball, quickly became a force for Jabbar, who had become a trouble student. The only place I was even slightly safe was on the basketball court. Since I was the second tallest guy in the school, I was automatically on the team. He wore in steps. Giant steps. Jabbar wasn't very good at that, but the game was the only high point during his long school days. Instead of quitting because he couldn't play well, he worked very hard to learn the game. Because he longed to be at home, Jabbar was sent back to St. Jude's where he reached the fifth grade. By then, he was so tall that he was put on the school's eighth grade basketball team, even though his size continued to make him feel awkward. Jabbar also became interested in running, so he joined the school's track team. This helped him develop his style on the basketball court. As a 17th grader, Jabbar was 6 feet 5 inches tall and still growing. He was less active now, and he was making an attempt to become more able. He learned to jump high enough to reach the edge of the basketball rim, and after a while, he could reach it many times in a row. The hours spent on the basketball court were beginning to show in Jabbar's athletic performances. By the time he reached the eighth grade, he was a more confident player and much less active one. In one game alone, he scored 33 points and standout accomplishments for even a professional player. By this time, he had grown to be 6 feet 8 inches tall in early star style. When Jabbar reaches the age of 14, he could dunk the basketball and move where players jumped so high that their hand and ball are both above the basket before the ball is pushed through the netting. Usually, players had to be very tall and have strong legs to dunk the ball. Most non-athletes could never attempt to do this move, but Jabbar can do it well. Because he was the tallest, his coach naturally put him in the center position. The center player not only jumps for the ball at the beginning of the game, but is also responsible for working close to the basket. In this way, the player in the center position can take passes from teammates, can make shots, and if another teammate shots and if another teammate shoots and misses, he can control any rebound shots. While playing defensively, the center player stays near the other team's center and tries to block potential shots. Jabbar playing poorly at first, but because he was driving to excel in his newfound position, he practiced constantly. Even though Jabbar was busy with basketball, his parents did not allow him to neglect his schoolwork. Because he was a good student, agreed on the court. Several high schools wanted him to enroll and play on their basketball team. Jabbar met the basketball coach of Power Mall Academy, Jack Donahue, and liked him a great deal. He began attending classes and playing basketball for Power Mall in the fall of 1961. Powerful but awkward, Jabbar didn't fit in very well and spent much of his time by himself. He was the only child, and he was quiet at least to be alone. Jabbar's parents also kept him sheltered from anyone they thought might be a bad influence. He restored to play with basketball, a sport that he could practice alone any time that he wanted. The time he spent practicing was beginning to show itself in his playing skill. He was becoming more and more graceful. He worked very hard during the summer break and kept improving his game while playing alone on the courts every day, sometimes all day. During Jabbar's sophomore year, he made the varsity team at Power Mall. Coach Donahue, who was dedicated to his team, trained along with his students, and inspired them to do their best. Donahue helped Jabbar develop his game until he understood the sport of basketball more than he ever had before. In fact, Jabbar led his teammates through that season with no losses. Since Power Moller did not have traditional or successful basketball teams, most people never came to see a team play. As the team won game after game, however, more people came to the gym to see Jabbar and his teammates. This pressure was then difficult in the beginning. He felt as if all the people watching would be unhappy if the team lost. He felt personally responsible for the outcome of each game. That year, Palomoro's success frustrated their opponents during one game, and the post player assaulted Jabbar by intending to bite him. That player was thrown out of the game, but the non-emotionally between Jabbar and his opponents continued. Now that Power Moller had a winning team, many reporters wanted to talk to Jabbar, but Donahue wouldn't let him speak with reporters. Donahue wanted Jabbar to focus on basketball and schoolwork, rather than the traditional stress of becoming a local newspaper favorite. It was also important to Donahue that team members act like a team, without signing out the skills of one player. Jabbar took these lessons to heart and learned the value of being a team member. After their regular season, the Power Motor team went on to win the city championship, and Jabbar was chosen All-City and All-American. He was very pleased to be noticed while in high school. He liked basketball, and having those honors just made the sport that much more fun. Occasionally, Donahue would get tickets to professional basketball games at Madison Square Garden in New York City, and he and Jabbar would go and watch games played by great players such as Wilton Chambine, Bill Russell, and Bob Cosley. I wasn't even thinking about playing professional basketball, but he said in giant steps. I just wanted to pick up some pointers. I learned how to do that let pass from watching Bill Russell for the second season in a row. Paul Moore won every game, including the city championship, though a few of the games were close calls. Jabbar was again chosen All-City and All-American, and the team seems unbeatable. Black culture and civil rights. During the summer after his junior year, Jabbar appeared for the position with the Harlem Loop Action Project. He got a job in the journalist walking where he learned basically writing skills and how to be a good reporter. Most of the assignments were about the other areas of the organization, such as the drama, music, and dance workshops. Other times, the reporters were about current events in New York City. While researching its local expenditure, Jabbar discovered the Scobenberg Center for Resource in Black Culture. He found many fantastic things at the center. He learned about the Jazz Age in Harlem in the 1920s, when African American artists and talent musicians, dancers, painters, and wheels all drew together and created some of the most valuable art in the country. This period of artistic growth is sometimes referred to as the Harlem Renaissance. It echoed the insights of many famous people, such as W.E.B. Du Bois, a civil rights activist, and the first African American to receive a field day from Harvard University. Jabbar also learned about the part lessons Hughes and the novelist Rob Eller. Learning about Harlem's past excited Jabbar because he had lived in Harlem during his boyhood. He had developed a sense of pride and respect for himself and for his community. He had also developed an interest in civil rights. He went to hear Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speak in New York City. He can even be seen in the background of the photo taken of Dr. King, the famed Baptist minister who was continuing to nonviolent and was later assassinated for his convictions. Jabbar became even more interested in issues like racism and African American culture. Though he didn't necessarily always agree with Dr. Martin Luther King, I didn't subscribe to his philosophy on nonviolence. He would continue. He would count in his book, Kareem, in which draw respect to it, though I come to realize that his way is probably the only way. Race riots. One summer night in July 1964, Jabbar stepping out of the subway and into the riot. He had heard the sound of gunfire and watching people smash things in the street. Fire leaping from some buildings' windows. Jabbar had been a reporter for several weeks, and he thought briefly about trying to write about what he saw that night. He quickly realized he was in too much danger and went away as fast as he could. Over the next few days, Jabbar did some researches. 2 days before the riot, a white policeman had shot and killed an African American high school student. The student was unarmed, but the policeman thought he had a gun. The people in Harlem didn't believe the policeman's story about seeing a gun, and they were angry. Their writing was a call for justice in the wake of the student's death. Jabbar reportedly on the 5 days of riots, and he was angry, too. He felt, like many other people in Harlem, that the police were working against the poor people they were supposed to protect. A week after the riots, Jabbar went to Friendship Farm, a basketball camp north of New York City, to help Coach Donahue educated youngsters against basketball. Youngsters about basketball. Since he enjoyed since he enjoyed having children, he had gone to the count the year before. This season, however, he was distracted. He couldn't stop thinking about the whites and about Holland, although he had grown up around people of all races. He began to feel more and more anger towards whites. He couldn't wait to get away from the phone's peaceful summer setting and return to England. Back to school. In the fall of 1964, Jabbar returned to Palmyra for his senior year. Again, the basketball team had dominated and winning season before scrambling in their final game to a par for Maryland High School with a score of 43-46. Palmyra had finally lost, but their winning streak still proud at a total of 71 games. For a high school that had never had a winning team before, it was a very exciting time. For a third consecutive year, Jabbar was voted All-City and All-American. With the basketball season over and his senior year winding down, Jabbar had to decide where he would go to college. At the most, though, he narrowed his choice to four schools: St. John's University, Columbia University, the University of Michigan, and the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA. Jabbar wanted to leave home and gain some independence from his parents, like many other teenagers. He wanted to be considered an adult. For that reason, he was most interested in schools far away from New York City. He visited UCLA, and was impressed with its beautiful Preston campus. People were friendly, and the weather was warm. Also, they had a great team. UCLA had won two national championships in the early 1960s. The team never had a new place to play basketball. The proverb prevalent. Best of all, UCLA imported coach John Woody. Jabbar met with him when he visited the campus and felt that he had strong sensibility in endless courts. Woody had been inducted as a player into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1961, but in 1973 he was also inducted as a coach, one of only two people to have that honor. Woody had all the characteristics of a talented college coach: courage, talent, and drive, coupled by a great professional career. Jabbar wanted to play basketball for him because he knew Woody would help him achieve his goals to play professional basketball. As a result, UCLA was Jabbar's college choice. On his final morning in New York, he took several pictures of his home, his friends, and his parents, anyone and everything he knew he would miss. But Jabbar was excited about UCLA and his first chance to live away from home. He finished taking the pictures, kissed his parents goodbye, and head for Colorado and history. That's all for the part one. Tomorrow, the part two of this series of Basketball Hall of Famers Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.